Welcome to MQC, the Massachusetts Quadball Chat for off-pitch chats with Carsen and Sierra. We're going to start off this week by recapping this past weekend.
Awesome. So this last weekend had the start of the Division One bowl games between Brandeis and RPI to see who plays Harvard. Brandeis took the best of three series in the first two games with scores of 230 to RPI's 85 in game one and then 200 to 70. It was then immediately followed up by a quick round robin with Brandeis playing Brown, Brandeis taking the win, and then Brown playing RPI for Brown to take the win in that one. But we'll kind of go through and break down each game one by one. So we'll start with the bowl games and game one with Brandeis versus RPI.
Yeah, this game I think featured a lot of fast breaks from Brandeis. RPI didn't really seem confident when they started, I want to say, and Brandeis I think really took advantage of that, just forcing turnovers at half pitch and then immediately scoring on a fast break. I think their chasers were putting in a lot of effort to get downfield to create those opportunities. And I think there was a lot of really scrappy play on second chance opportunities that allowed them to capitalize.
Yeah, I know we talked about this, I think, last week with RPI, kind of seeing like necessarily a top line. And I always understand some teams, don't always want to put like all their best players in one go. But I feel like in a game like this, it's important to build momentum. And I think you can see that in some points where like RPI can get scoring, and so they do. But if you start off a game, and I think this game started off with like Brandeis getting a lot of goals, just like kind of back to back. I think that does stuff to you mentally if you're not like prepared for it to like play from behind. And so like if a team that you think you should play even with scores like four unanswered goals, I think everybody starts to kind of panic a bit. Um, to that point, I don't think RPI necessarily knew how to adjust. Brandeis was like getting a lot of turnovers at half court. So like whether it was like a bobbled pass by RPI or Brandeis's beaters just kind of shutting things down, I think there was a lot of things that they could clean up that would just make the offense flow a little bit better.
I think RPI's beaters definitely looked confused this weekend, and Brandeis's beaters really just kind of dominated, even when they didn't have control, which I think just furthers the point that you don't need control to succeed.
Yeah, no, I think Anna Wing and Ben Lambright had pretty phenomenal showings this weekend. I think they played in the first shift of the first game and looked like really confident, like they knew what they wanted to do. They'd either like make trades, get everything on the ground, and then it looked like all their chasers were ready to press with that. I think it looked like Brandeis had like a really clear offensive identity, which was just kind of push the pace, keep it moving. Um, when they were running, it wasn't that like, oh, every single lane was filled and everybody's always in the right spot. It's just to your point, like they all ran, they all hustled. If it was a missed shot, they were chasing it down. If they got, started to get wrapped up, they'd get the ball out quick, even if it wasn't the cleanest pass. Like somebody was there to like hustle to the ball, get it, and keep the play going. So I think Brandeis just had a lot of like second opportunities off of like breaks, and I don't think RPI did the best job at getting back on defense and then talking and communicating with each other about like, I'm guarding this person, like I'm guarding this space, anything like that. So I think Brandeis really just kind of kept the foot on the gas and just kept going.
Yeah, I think something that RPI can maybe take out of this weekend is, even necessarily if they're not winning on the offensive end, is to turn the ball over, if you're going to turn it over, in a more opportune position for yourself. So rather than turning it over at half, like we saw happen a lot this weekend, turn it over in the far corner so that you have time to set up the defense instead of running a scramble transition.
Yeah, I think to that point, like there were some where like Brandeis was pressing and RPA like in their own keeper zone, whether they got scored on or got the turnover. Their keeper has it, they're advancing right outside of the keeper zone. And then like it was even sometimes just like one Brandeis chaser is like pushing them back in or forcing a bad pass that went out of bounds. And you'd really like to see them just like have some composure, maybe in like a timeout that they take or at 20 or whenever, just kind of talk about how they're going to adjust to like such a high press, whether it's just sending somebody down and just giving them a long pass. That way, like all of Brandeis' defense is out of position and maybe you can get something. I think one kind of person that we highlighted a lot for RPI, I think 2 weekends ago, who we didn't see much out of this weekend was Anson Decker. I honestly wasn't even sure he had played. I wasn't at the game, so I had to watch the film back. And a little bit is that it's kind of far away. There, people are really small on there. But I think another part is just like it was a really quiet 2 games against Brandeis for him.
Yeah, and I think that maybe says a lot about Brandeis's game planning ahead of time. I think they were well prepared for the major threats on RPI. So like Ad, Vivi, Ben, Anson, I think are four of the ones that come to mind first. And I don't think that any of them really had time to like get cooking this weekend. I think Vivi was making the right decisions. I think she had great looks. I just think there were just like unlucky shots. You know, it's the right shot. It just goes a little low. It hits the T bar and bounces off. That sort of thing that just like kind of gets you down because it's not actually your fault.
Yeah, I think that's one thing RPI like probably wants to focus on is just really like working on getting like the hands for the catch because like there were so many where like it was a beautiful cut by like Ad or like Justine, Will, like so many different people, and it was just they couldn't hold on to the ball when it got there. And so I think tightening up that and like tightening up like passes that way that's looking a little bit more crisp will definitely translate into some better offense for them, and then there won't be as much stagnation. Um, on the flip side, kind of talking about like where we thought RPI might improve or like kind of change up for this weekend. Brandeis still found themselves in some card trouble. I say it didn't hurt them so much this weekend, but I think that's something that they're probably going to want to tighten up.
Yeah, and I'm glad that I'm not glad that they haven't figured out how to stay out of card trouble, but I am glad to see that they still manage to, I think, score frequently when down a player. Because when you're down, you know you've lost your shape, you've lost one of your options, and sometimes it's difficult to find a way to, convert still. But I think that they did well in finding those ways and making it happen.
Yeah, I think it just really goes back to show that like they were committed to the we are running. So like we're down a beater, we're down a chaser, doesn't matter. We are sprinting up that field. Like we're gonna try for a goal. If we don't get it, we're gonna try again. I know there was one goal by I think Felicity Himes where didn't even see her anywhere. I just saw all Brandeis people run up. There was like a missed shot, a block shot, or something, and then somehow she just comes up with it and puts it in quick. Um, it's tough to see on the film, but like I think it really was just like a lot of hustle on Brandeis's end to kind of put these two games away. Um, I think on the card trouble aspect, it's good to see them push the pace. I'd like to see them not get so many cards. I think when they're playing somebody like Harvard or some other like more out of region, out of MQC teams, I think it will bite them a little bit more if they are still picking up these cards, especially because it is like Eli Fider. I think Ben Lembright got a couple cards, Rowan Scosalotti. So it's like a lot of the players that they rely on in either the beating game, the chasing game, or the seeking game. And so it's kind of they're big people who are getting these cards. And like one here, there is fine, but obviously if you pick up three, like you're out of the game and your team's down a person for 2 minutes. So I'd really like to see them sharpen that up as they look forward to nationals and playing Harvard for the D1 champ.
Yeah. So we're gonna step on now to the round robin featuring Brown. Brandeis had the back to back with their bowl games, so it came out on probably some tired legs, but they still managed to, I think, outplay Brown in the quad ball game because they won without securing a catch.
Yeah, so Tommy, I'm not sure. One of them, I think maybe both. Flathers on Brown scored 6 of their 11 goals. Carsten on Brown got the catch. I think to your point, right? Like, I think Brandeis just outplayed them in the quaffle game, like pretty hands down. But I think watching it back, it was 4 periods of the game. The first 5 minutes, it was all Brandeis. The next 5 minutes, it was a lot like more back and forth. I think Brown actually like went on a bit of a run. Brandeis went on a bit of a run the other way. It was never like I'd say like super close. Like I never was like, oh, like Brown just needs like one or two more goals to like put it in there. But I think long stretches of the game were really even, which is good to see. I know like a couple weekends ago, Brown almost beat Brandeis. This time, even with a catch, they were still a little bit like behind. And so yeah, I think it's good that like there is parity in some of those moments. And so I think for Brown, it's just figuring out how can we get that going the entire game and not just for these smaller stretches.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure what the assists look like, but Will Richardson was incredibly quiet this game. He turned it on against RPI, but I would love to. I think maybe a key for Brown sticking closer to Brandeis is get him like finishing more possessions for them.
Yeah, I think it's always good like I know some teams are big on like one person's going to start the offense, one person's going to finish it. And from what I could see, that was a bit of what was going on with like Will and Flathers. Like Flathers was the person who Will would pass to kind of get the dunk or the shot or whatever to get the goal. I'd like to see like a reverse of that, a flip, getting more people involved as well. I know we've talked about Brown kind of having like three really good players. I think like getting a fourth up there, and even like some depth in there too, who can perform at that level. That way, it's not just worrying about like one person. And I think to your point, like if you know that a team has someone like Will Richardson, I think kind of top priority is okay. Like we're gonna shut him down first, and then we will worry about some of the supporting pieces and kind of see how that goes from there.
Yeah, and I imagine Brandeis going into this weekend was definitely game planning to shut down Will because he is their star player, and for a good reason.
Yeah. Which takes us to Brown RPI. I can't remember what my prediction was. I think we thought RPI would.
I think we thought RPI would come out of it.
So another incorrect prediction for us.
Such a bad
yeah, it's not looking good for us. But Will Richardson scored 8 goals out of the 17 that Brown scored. So definitely not a slow game for him here. Looked a lot more just like in form, taking people on. I will say, I think Brandeis versus RPI. I think RPI has a lot of like good like last ditch effort defenses, but I think Brandeis is a bit of a scarier defensive team where some people who are like a little bit further up will get really good stops. And so I definitely think that could kind of account for why it might look a little bit different from the Will Richardson score.
Yeah, and I think after 20 minutes, these teams looked a lot more even. I think Brown only outscored them by 1 goal after 20. And then RPI also had the help of the catch, but I think that their deficit for the first 20 was just a little bit too steep to overcome for them to close that big win.
Yeah, I think that's something RPI really wants to focus on is how can they get like the most out of like the first 20 minutes, because they have a really good seeker in ad. They have a really great driving threat. Their beaters like know what to do. I think sometimes they just don't necessarily do it. And so like they have a really good chasing core that they really could like get the most out of for like the seeker on pitch moment. I'd really like to see them just focus a little bit more on maybe like getting a group of like 6 chasers ready to play those first 20 minutes. That way it's not so much of a fight at the end. And if they are going to fight at the end, everybody loves a catch as a seeker. It's like a great feeling. Maybe don't have that go. If you the time that you're looking the most successful of the whole game is that like flag runner and pitch part, keep it going. Like don't try and catch, defensive seek, like prolong that period so you can catch up. And then when the flag is going to get you really back in the game for either like next goal wins or even to win the game, that's when you can be catching. I think a lot of teams probably want to try and be a little bit more strategic about how they're going about the end game. And like 30 points, I know it's like exciting, but it's 30 points and then it goes back to the first 20 minutes of the game. And if you weren't winning that, the odds of you winning now, it's not good.
So yeah, I think this is something that like we'll see RPI probably learn a lot from going into Cup, and I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yeah. With that being said, looking ahead, there's nothing for this weekend. So there was supposed to be a round robin, no bowl games. It unfortunately had to get canceled just due to some roster issues, some transportation issues with some of the schools. So there will not be an MQC series this weekend, but
there are some Boston Forge tryouts this weekend. So on Saturday, March 23rd, from 1 to 4 at Harvard's Cumnock Fields, we'll be at Smithfield down the street if we get kicked off. Boston Forge tryouts, come hang out with us for the summer. You can register at the link in our description.
Yeah, head coach is going to be Harry Greenhouse. Other things, even if you're not planning on playing, you're still able to come to tryouts. It'll be good experience just to play with some top level players from the area, meet some people on other college teams. So always recommend coming out to give it a try. But yeah, definitely can catch us next week. There won't be a recap, but there will probably be a preview for any upcoming MQC series as we move further into bowl games. I think the announcement on when the D2 champs and Division 1 champs are going to be will be coming soon. Those will likely be in April. But yeah, definitely that's all we got, I think.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. I would tell you to tune into the MQC Facebook page, but there's nothing to tune into. So we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, stay tuned for future games.